Hey everyone, this is Patrick Findaro, co-founder at Vetted Biz and managing partner at Visa Franchise. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about an industry we've had a lot of clients over the years invest in, which is business services. And this is pretty varied, in terms of insurance, payroll, bookkeeping, accounting. There's other types of services. Those are some of the primary ones that you can invest in, whether it's a franchise or an existing business for sale in the business services industry. So just a little bit about the business services industry, and this is based on the work that our analysts have done here in Miami, Florida, looking at 1.3 million SBA loans, of which roughly 100,000 were to business service companies over the last 30 years through the Small Business Administration Loan Program. We've been able to compile a lot of data, as well as we use a few other third-party sources for some of the information I'll present today, as well as over 150 franchise disclosure documents in 2020 and 2019 for different services in the business services space. So real quick, the industry is $10 billion as of 2019. There's 28 million small businesses throughout the United States, all different size, some 0 employees, self-employed, some close to 50 employees. So it really varies in terms of the size. Here in Florida, we have 2 million small businesses. So you can imagine there's quite a lot of small businesses that you could serve. Again, whether that's through insurance, accounting, payroll. A lot of these services are needed and are oftentimes required even by federal, state, or local law. And also, in terms of the investment amount, it's generally going to be on the low end, especially when you compare it to food and beverage, or I talked yesterday about coffee businesses, where you compare it to a coffee shop that might cost you anywhere from $200K up to $1 million plus. The average business services business or franchise is going to be around $100,000. So it's not necessarily going to break the bank. And some of the pros and cons with business service, it might take more time for you to really start developing that book of clients when you compare it to a restaurant that opens up or a barbershop that opens up, and you can have very aggressive marketing. The consumers might be willing to spend $25, $30 on a haircut, or someone spend $12 on a meal, but convincing a small business owner to switch insurance or switch payroll providers or switch their bookkeeping, that can take some time. So there are ways that you can pass through this, whether you're starting an existing business or going the franchise route. One way would be to buy as an asset purchase or buy outright the company that is already in that space that maybe might be retiring or they're moving. Because looking at some of the data I have here, for a leading franchise with 91 units that was founded 16 years ago in the business services area, year one, their franchisees average $85,000 of sales. Year two goes up to $174,000. Year three, $336,000. Year four, $520,000. And then year five, $939,000 is the average income. So you can see that it does take time to build that base of clients, and that the gross profit averages range from 44% to 47%. This franchise is definitely a pretty high gross profit. And then in terms of operating profit, net profit rather, it's going to depend on how you're running the business to get to those numbers. But it's really important to understand gross profit. And for this, there are ways that you can leapfrog and get to the 300K number much faster. And that would be going out and buying an existing business. So an existing bookkeeping business, an existing insurance practice, And if you do choose to go the franchising route, there are ways to roll that existing business into a franchise system. So you have the marketing, lead generation, and that ongoing support. And maybe you don't want to be doing the bookkeeping, and some franchisors will actually take care of a lot of the actual work, and you're much more focused on sales, marketing, client relationships, where the franchisor is the one that's selecting insurance coverage or providing the actual payroll work or bookkeeping. So that'd be one advantage. It's really playing to your strong suit. So if you're more the type of businessman that's focused and better at managing people, sales, marketing, it might be a better fit to go the franchise route. But if you do come from the accounting world and you were working for a large corporation, but you know the ins and outs, and you already have some friends and family that you could already start your book of business, maybe the franchising route's not the best option. In terms of looking at the numbers, over the past 10 years, our analysts have looked at 560,000 loans issued under the Small Business Administration. The franchise success rate was 11-1 for business services. So for every 11 loans issued, for every 11 loans paid back in full for someone that was operating a business in the business services industry, one was charged off. For franchise business services, and then non-franchise, it was a little more successful. Not much, but for every 12 loans that were paid in full, there was one that defaulted, and presumably the business failed. Those are both stronger than the overall industry averages for both franchise businesses and non-franchise businesses over the last 10 years. The records for going back 30 years are a lot more accurate, we found, for franchising, given the unique franchise identifier code that we can use and the name that is used in the SBA loan record. So for business services franchise, the success rate is 5-1. So every 5 franchisees that paid their loan in full, one defaulted. Now, I don't like those odds with 10-1, 20-1. And that's why it's important to look, you can see the industry. Does the industry make sense? Do the fundamentals make sense? But then you have to take a deeper look at the actual franchise and talk to franchisees. Look at the FDD. Take a look at the vetted biz profile. You can see how many closures there's been over the last 3 years. Understand why there have been closures. So the 5-1, it's not necessarily cause of concern, but it's important to be that much more mindful on the individual businesses that you're evaluating to see their success rate. But 5-1 is better than the overall franchise success ratio over the 100,000 loans that have been issued under the SBA loan program to franchises over the last 30 years rather. One notable thing for franchises in insurance, payroll services, etc., is the average franchise royalty is quite higher compared to food and beverage, for example. It's right around 10%. Part of that is because the franchisor might be providing the service and really supporting in terms of the product, where you're more focused on the client service sales. So you could see that as a line item. And then the marketing fees, pretty standard across different franchises at 2%. I'm going to show you just quickly the options that we have and just how to explore a bit the business services section of our site. All right. So here I have the business services industry. I went through some of those statistics, and here you can see a few of the different industries that we're working with. Actual franchise opportunities, and then an existing business for sale as well, which also happens to be a franchise. So let's just go through a couple of those right now. First one would be Estrella. which actually I did a live stream with their head of franchise development a couple of weeks ago. You can see the video on YouTube. Here you have the review of the franchise, the metrics, and then the SBA loan data. So you can see, yes, it is eligible for SBA financing, and there are some additional requirements that you have to go through to get that SBA financing. Founded 40 years ago, initial investment 50 to 80K. You can see these key figures. So the royalty, 10% of revenue, pretty much the average. As I mentioned, the average for business services franchises was 10.4%. You can go through video here. And then I wanted to show an example of an existing business for sale. This business is in California, in LA County, South Bay. It's recently opened franchise, just a couple of employees, and the owner for personal reasons wants to sell her business. Sales are pretty good in 2019 at $356,000. So this could be an option if you're looking to enter a business services space and you want to already start with an existing book of clients and you want to have cash coming in from day one. It could be a good option to buy an existing franchise business in that space. Well, I just wanted to thank everyone for your time today. Take a look at our site, vettedviz.com. And until next time.